All right, Michael, welcome to the
Hey,
podcast. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you, Pastor Jamie? Thank you
Good.
for having me.
Yeah, man, it's good. You just got baptized not long ago.
I did.
How was
I
that?
did. It's
I mean,
been,
I was there,
oh,
but
yeah, it was awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
why do you like now that you've had a little time to reflect on it? How would you describe it?
So, um, it's been life-changing, actually.
Really?
It's it's like a breath of fresh air. It was like a weight off my shoulder that I knew that time had come for me to just to go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and being able to do it the same day as your wife. That's really awesome, huh?
Yeah, at times I wish I could just revisit that day again.
Really?
Yeah, I want to go back and just.
Yeah.
So I know there's a baptism coming up. I almost signed up for it just just to get that feeling again.
Do it
Yeah,
again.
just to do
Nah.
it again.
Yeah, I don't know if we could replicate it,
Oh,
But I love what you're saying. That's why I asked you because it's so recent. Is and you'd been a believer for a while. It's not like
yes,
you're a new
yes.
Christian, um, but there's something that God does. It's really hard to explain until you go through it, and
I
it's
agree.
worth it, right?
I agree.
How
And
about
it
Lauren? Does she feel the same way?
feels the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And I'm glad that we were able to do it together.
yeah,
She was a bit hesitant on
yeah.
doing so, and I'm glad
She
that.
seemed excited the whole time,
Oh
though.
yeah, yeah. She did. She didn't want to do it alone,
Yeah,
and there was
yeah.
no better time and
No,
opportunity when I said, "Hey, I'm signed up.
let's
Let's do
do
it
it.
together."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was almost like when we went to dental school. Actually, I went to school, and she was like, "Do they have any more open?" I'm like, "Come along," and I ended
Dental
up.
school?
Yeah, we both went to dental school, so I was able to uh, do all her homework actually. I couldn't pass the test for her. She had to do that on her own. However, we were able to both achieve.
Whatever happened with that? You didn't,
Oh no, I've been in the dental field since
what do you do?
2013. So I'm one of the assistants in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been an assistant
Nice.
for almost
You've seen
15
some
years,
really
something like
gross
that.
mouths, haven't you?
I've seen a lot of teeth. Yeah, I've seen a lot of teeth. Yeah,
Yeah, wow. Good for you.
yeah,
Man,
yeah.
that's awesome. One of the things I wanted to have you on, because you kind of mentioned in your very brief testimony
Yes.
before being baptized, was just some of the things God got you through. And as we've talked, a lot of it was in your very younger years, right?
Yes.
But I got thinking like how many people might feel like because of mistakes they've made or whether it's their childhood or not, just like their past, right? The things they've done and how they sometimes they give up on themselves or we might give up on someone else. I thought your story could really help encourage someone to just be like, he takes a lot of crooked roads, right?
I,
He
I
really
agree.
does. Yeah.
Yes, so I mean to touch upon that, it's
Yeah.
like I grew up going to church every
Where
weekend.
were you when you were growing
I
up?
was in Framingham.
Yep.
Yeah, I was in Framingham, but my mother would take us to Waltham and
Yep.
also Watertown, so we would have to leave extra early. Even if it started at 11, we'd be out of the house by like 7:30, 8 o'clock at times. God bless my mother. There was three of us,
Yep.
so like and at times my dad he didn't go, and sometimes he did go. So so now having kids, I know how
Oh,
hard it is
yeah.
to get the kids ready and out the door. So God bless my mom for being able to
And you're in two,
uh,
you're not an hour away. You're like,
no, yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, and
yeah,
there was
yeah,
almost no stopping too. We kind of had to go, and
yeah.
no restroom breaks. We got to go. We got to get there.
So what age
Yeah.
do you remember, like, first remember going to church like that as a little kid?
6 and 7,
Yeah,
but I mean, there's photos of me
before that.
before
Yeah.
that. Yes.
How do you, it's hard to remember when we were 6, 7, but even as you got a little bit older, how did you feel about going to church? Was it like, wow, it's just what we do? Was there like, ugh, this is dreadful? How did you feel about it as a little boy?
Both,
Yeah.
all the above, and also I knew there was Dunkin' Donuts right after, so it was like, all right,
Yeah.
it's a win-win,
Yeah.
bittersweet, but we had
Yeah.
to wake up early, try to get breakfast in if we were hungry, out the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
But I knew Dunkin' Donuts was like after the service, so it was
So
like,
parents out there, keep that carrot,
yep, yep,
not just a stick. You're in trouble. Just be like, hey, we're gonna get a donut.
right,
If you
right,
behave yourself in church.
yeah, yep, that's true.
So when do you feel like at what age do you feel like your life started kind of diverting from where God would want?
That's a great question. So I felt like around me growing up, witnessed just like a lot of uh, like folks that they would be drinking,
Yep.
smoking cigarettes, and it was just like the time of that era where it was smoking cigarettes was like a thing. You could smoke anywhere, and
When you say folks, like other kids and kids you
um,
knew, family, that kind
my
of thing.
family,
Yeah.
yeah, my family, my uncles.
Okay.
My dad was a heavy cigarette smoker. He was a big drinker. Um,
Mm.
Also a lot of close family
Is
members.
this mostly like at
Yeah.
night when you saw him, or we're just talking about like just
Oh, through the day.
yeah.
Yeah, through the day. He would
Okay.
be smoking cigarettes. At night would be the
The
drinking.
drinking. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, growing up, I just thought that was the normal thing to do.
Mm.
And I wanted to try it out when I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Mm.
And I thought that was the thing to do. That was all around me. That was like my media that was influenced upon me to
Mm.
smoke and drink. So that's
Man, so you had access to it and everything.
easy access.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right there in the fridge, ready to go. My dad had packs. I mean, we'd drive up to New Hampshire,
Mm-hmm.
uh, probably once or twice a month to get a carton, I think, and
Yeah.
at a tax
Cigarettes.
rate.
Yeah.
So I guess on the sales end, that's a great deal.
Yeah.
You pay $20, $30 for X amount of cigarettes, where
Right.
you spend $20 or $30 in Massachusetts. I don't know
So do
what
you
it
think your
was
dad
then.
noticed you kind of pilfering some of the
I don't
booze
think
and
he noticed up until maybe I was like 10 years old, where I did um, notice there was on the cigarette box where he would keep behind a tinfoil wrap uh, a, a different set style of a cigarette,
okay.
but it had so it was marijuana, but I didn't know what it was. So I'm trying to describe it as how I
Yeah.
visualized it when I
Yeah.
was at that age. So I just was like, okay, this is a whole different um,
Whole
breed
different
here. It's a
whole
different, it's a
different deal. Yeah.
different cigarette here. So
So do you feel like your parents just didn't and other adults in your life just had no idea?
they had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were just so accustomed to that was their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Not my mom, I
Yeah.
would say, but she knew that he was up to it.
Right.
And at times I knew she would smoke a cigarette, but like never in front of me and my siblings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
for me, between age 7 to 10 was when that was my media, where I thought that was the okay thing to do.
Did that kind of that lifestyle and drinking and smoking even at a really young age did it kind of open the door for other things, other behaviors you feel like?
Oh yes, I believe that that was because that was my what I thought that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It just continued down bad bad choice
Mm.
of knowing what was right from wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially at that age. I mean, my daughter is like gonna be 6. I can never imagine her picking up a cigarette, let alone a rolled up joint. Like, you
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
So I made sure to cut that out when I was
Yeah.
18, 19,
Yeah.
because I was then adult,
Didn't want to repeat that.
and I knew I was gonna be marrying my
Mm-hmm.
lovely wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not want to have that in my future at all,
Yeah.
especially for the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. That yet they weren't born, but I knew that that was my intent in life to have kids.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you remember as you got a little bit older, what did you feel like? Oh, I was totally fine, or was there aspects? And you're still going to church at that time?
Yeah.
Or-
Actually, I stopped going to church, I want to say, when I was like 10 or 11.
okay.
Yeah, my
Did you?
mom,
She let you start? Did she stop or?
no, my mom continued to go.
Okay, but
Yeah,
she didn't make you go with her.
and she did not make me go. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like
Why
a
do you
choice.
think? Because were you giving her a hard time?
I think I was giving her a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. Or I would just pretend I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
I would stay in, and
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't have gone.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a real case to be made, like you said, for dads and how they influence their kids as far as going to church,
Mm-hmm.
really with everything. But it's like that's how God designed you to be the leader, whether you know it or not, right? Like kids are looking at dad, they love mom, and mom is, their care, they just takes care of them, and but when you look to someone to lead as an example, it's just in us to look at dad.
Mm-hmm.
And the statistics are crazy when you look at, even if a dad just goes to church, they don't even have to necessarily be like this amazing, fruitful Christian. Simply, they regularly go to church. Their children are like 80 plus more percent likely to go when they're an adult, versus if just mom, it's like 20 something percent.
Wow.
Even if mom's faithful, it's not that mom did anything wrong. It's just something about God wiring us and wiring men and wiring dads, as much as our culture wants to say it different today, that we're all the same, and we're not,
Wow.
And
That's
so I'll bet if dad had gone, and I'm not blaming him for anything, I'm just saying
mm-hmm.
that just from your standpoint, you would have looked at it as like, well, I should do this, even if I don't really want to. Whereas, it's mom's thing, right?
It's nice to hear that because it's true. He never probably ever went with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And you being with your kids every week, and not just but being involved, and then the more fruit you show,
mm-hmm.
the more, the more it's actual. You're not just attending church, but actually trying to follow Christ. It's like your kids are seeing that in mom and dad, but especially dad.
No, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's odd because my grandma, my dad's mother, she's
Mhm.
pure Christian. Like
Yeah.
she's to the heart. Every day she's in church, not just like once a week. She's in there every
Wow.
day. Yeah, God bless her. She's still here with us today, thank
Yeah.
God. But she continues to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like that because she has gone my dad, he never went. So I don't know where he did not follow his footsteps to continue to go. But after hearing what you said,
Yeah.
maybe his dad
Right.
did not go.
Right.
And I know he was a big cigarette smoker. I don't
Yep.
know about the drinking,
Right.
but I know he was a big cigarette smoker. So
Mm.
it could been the reason why my dad
Yeah.
did not go. Yeah.
It's very often behaviors generation to generation. And again, for men who want to lead their families rightly, it is our responsibility. It doesn't mean mom's not important at all. It's just what God has designed us to do, to not just say stuff, but to live it, right?
Right.
So take us back again to so you said some kind of behaviors cropped up with that lifestyle,
Mhm.
right? And did you ever feel bad about it? Do you
I
remember?
I never felt bad actually.
I felt like it was perfectly normal.
Yeah, I thought it was just a perfectly normal
Other
way
kids your
of
age
behavior.
do it, or were you just mainly
No.
with older kids?
So no, not I had a cousin that was close to my age, so we
Yep.
would do it together.
Okay.
And my older brother,
Mhm.
I would hang around with his friends. So
Yep.
I wasn't necessarily like hanging around with kids my age. I was hanging around with my brother who's like 5 years older than me.
Okay.
So he was a little bit more
Yeah, he's more
advanced in
12 to
life.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and he was doing the same too.
Right.
So I was a bit influenced by my brother and his activity,
Yeah.
even though he wasn't like having me do the same.
Yeah.
I was just there, so
Yeah.
it wasn't
He
like
wasn't like trying to rope you in.
right.
Yeah.
It wasn't pure pressure.
Right,
Is the
right,
word.
right.
Yeah.
And he's young too. It's
Correct.
not like, yeah, he's older than you, but we're not talking about a 20-year-old here.
Correct. Correct.
So his choices, could have been better, but
That's correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a sister or another?
I do have a younger sister.
And she just stayed away from you guys.
She stayed away from us.
Good for her.
Yeah, good for her. I know. And she's still like that.
Yeah. She learned early.
Oh,
Stay away from those clowns.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what other kinds of behaviors did that kind of gateway you into?
Yeah. So, smoking cigarettes
Yep.
led to I was 10 years old smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
So from 10, I went from smoking marijuana more and less drinking because the drinking, I didn't like the effects to it. And
Yeah.
it was just like, all right, I was, vomiting at the age of
Yeah.
10 or 11. I'm just like, this is, and I'm not drinking heavily, but it was,
Just had an effect on you.
It
You were
had an
probably
effect on me.
small too.
and I was small, right?
Yeah.
So young enough to not know what I was doing,
Right.
but it also did have an effect. So
Right.
smoking cigarettes to smoking marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
Then I, f- I then my dad, I remember going down to the basement and uh, a large pillowcase. I'm talking about maybe the size like 2 feet tall and maybe 1 foot wide. It was
Mm-hmm.
very compressed. And when I went to open the case, it was my brother and I. It was
Mm-hmm.
just a massive amount of marijuana, and
Wow.
I was like, wow, we're we're in heaven.
Jackpot.
Me and my brother and I were like, all
I
right,
didn't think
let's
he had
just
so much just as
uh,
a storage, or did he sell it or what?
no, it was personal use for sure,
Wow.
personal use. But that was the day where my brother and I was like, let's grab a handful or two, and we're gonna sell it.
Mm.
And then that led to distributing the idea of, because my brother's 4 or 5 years old, so by the time I was 12 he was already like 16, 17,
Yeah.
and he knew what to do, and I was just kind of like
Oh, helping.
yeah, that little helper, that's what it was.
So you
So
started selling this, huh?
yes, unintentionally
Yeah.
selling. I was used as a prop,
Mm.
but not really with my brother. So like it was just like he had the idea. I was like, all right, let's do that. We would just sell it to like family members.
Mm-hmm.
We have a large family.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
dad, like he's like one of seven brothers, and then
Mm.
and so on. They have kids, and we're
Yeah.
all grew up close together. So
Okay.
we'd just
Lots of
sell it.
cousins
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah.
bunch
Yeah.
of cousins. So we'd sell it between the cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily for money. It would be like for games,
Yeah.
Pokemon cards. It'd be like in exchange, but that lingered to me growing
Mm.
from 12 to 15,
Mm.
where I was then I in school, um, but my mental was not in school. Like
Right.
my physical, I was going to school, but I made friends selling them
Mm.
marijuana, and that kind of just took me away from school and
Mm.
not be a kid.
Right.
And that was the effect that it played on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, through those years.
Wow.
So for me,
How are you then selling it? You were just like finding different places, parks or
yeah, it would be
places.
after school.
Okay.
There were times where I had some in school. I never got caught with anything, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking I should have gotten caught because it should have been like a big wake up call.
Right.
Um, but
Never.
yeah, it was always usually after school, uh, personal use as well. I was a big smoker,
Mm.
and yeah, after school mainly. Yeah.
Mm. Any thought at that age about God or faith, or was it just like I went to church when I was younger, and it's just not something I think about?
I never thought once about God up until accidents would occur to me, like
Yeah.
actual physical. If I got a cut, if I got hurt on my knee, which I tore my ACL,
Mm-hmm.
I was like then praying to God, like I need help. I need help to fix X, Y, or Z. But it was never to fix my life. It was never
Mm.
to guide me.
So you never like I don't believe in God. You always sort of believed, but nothing real personal.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. I always knew he was there. I
Mm-hmm.
always knew he existed. I just didn't thought he was with me anymore
Yeah.
until maybe I was 16 or 17, heavily intoxicated. I'm talking like just uh, uh alcohol use, like a heavy amount of alcohol and marijuana, and the combination of the two being in my dad's basement. I was with a group of friends, and one of them was happened to be a son of a pastor,
Mm-hmm.
and he he drifted away
Sure.
from being in.
Ended up in your basement.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
similar scenario where he was 13 to 15, he just
Yeah.
stopped going to church, and we just were hanging out.
Yeah.
That um I was just heartbroken, and he saw it, he felt it. All of a
What do you
sudden
mean?
I was heartbroken. Like I was very drunk and
Yeah.
high at the same time, not knowing how to control an emotion of
Mm.
at that time I remember feeling separated from not only my parents, uh, my brother. My brother then, he was older.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this depression
Mm.
of not having anyone, even though I was in a room filled with people,
Right.
but it just felt like I was alone.
Mm.
And I I was with Lawrence at the time.
Mm-hmm.
However, she was in college, so I just felt like I didn't have anyone to just lean on, talk to,
Mm-hmm.
and
What
she,
kinds of friends besides the pastor's son?
yeah,
What was it? Just because were you friends just mainly because hey, we smoke and drink together?
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wasn't a
smoke,
lot of like,
drink.
man, these are great friends.
No, actually, and none of them are my friends today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were the friends that I had at the
Yeah.
time, and um, but he happened to have a Bible with him, and he
Wow.
handed it to me, and he said, you don't have to read the whole book. It's a big book. It's very thick. I know it was just like probably 8 inches tall, maybe 8 inches wide, and you could think of the massive thickness that the
Yeah.
power held within that. So for me, it was just like overwhelming. Like, where would I even start to read
But
this?
how did you? That's interesting. So you're in this room,
Hmm.
intoxicated. He's intoxicated.
Yep.
I'm assuming, and he happens to have a Bible. I mean, just because he's a pastor's kid, he's just carrying it around with him.
Yeah, he had a
Yeah.
backpack,
Okay.
and I never knew what was in his
Do you
backpack.
think he was feeling some of the same stuff that you were feeling?
Yeah, he could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could have been. I
Yeah.
never asked. I never
Yeah.
knew. Um,
Not sure whatever happened to him or
yeah, actually, I think he's in Colorado now. Yeah, I'm not sure what
what
he's
he's
doing,
doing. Yeah.
but
Okay.
I know he has a family.
Yeah.
He, I'm not sure exactly what he does, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But it's interesting how God put him right there for you, you know?
he did.
When he gave you the Bible, it was overwhelming, but do you remember how like, it's hard because you were
Well,
intoxicated?
I remember him just saying, just start with the four gospels, and
Yeah.
that's when it hit me. I'm like, all right, you know what? I started the next day,
Really?
and
And
I
like Matthew or John or
Matthew, I believe that's the
yeah,
first one.
first one.
The first
Yeah.
one, yeah. I started
Yeah.
and I read through the all four gospels, and I felt clung like clean. What is the word?
Yeah.
Like when you
Cleansed.
when you clinge? No,
Yeah.
when you grasp onto something.
Oh, cling. Yeah. You're
Clinged. I feel
clinging to him.
clinged
Yeah. Yeah.
to the word. But I still felt separated.
Were you still smoking, drinking?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was still smoking and drinking.
Yeah. Doing everything. Yeah.
That's correct. And
And at that point, you're
um,
17, you said?
17.
So does that lead to other, because when you're a little kid, it's one thing, but so does that lead to other behaviors? Like how do you feel like you treated people? How do you feel like, what kinds of things did you do because of it?
I never, um, I never treated people with disrespect.
Yeah.
I was very social. So,
Hmm.
I'm not sure if that was my personality or if that was
Yeah.
just a part of the, the intoxication part.
Not
But
necessarily because people can be very angry and
yeah,
very rotten,
I
you
had a lot
know.
of friends,
Yeah.
and I
God's just giving you a great personality
thank
that
God.
even before you knew him, he knew you, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that
So
also got you a little bit of trouble.
it got me into a lot of trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the troubles, I
Yeah.
guess. I walk today with a plate that's in my face from the far end to my temple, all the way down to my right orbital, and it actually holds up my eyeball, actually. So I'm
Wow.
thankful that I still have my right eyeball, but I could have lost it.
What happened?
Um, so this was during a night where it was a party at one of my cousin's house. It's
Hmm.
a very busy, active street. However, it was located in, I guess like you call it like they call it the projects, I guess,
Hmm.
but I don't know how to.
Not a great area.
Yeah, not a great area.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not a great
Yeah.
area, and maybe 2 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning. There was a fight that broke out. I happened to be there. I wasn't involved with the fight, but I actually happened to get hit with an object, and I'm not sure what it could have been. Um,
Clearly a
I
hard
just,
object.
yeah, it could have been bat, bottle. I just remember seeing stars, just like an
Wow.
instant, like, um,
When you were still around 17 at this point, or were you older?
I think I was 16.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
16, and that led me to going to the hospital. Then, 24 hours later, took X-rays. They said, all right, we got to send you to Boston. They sent me to
Mm.
Boston, and they had to do an immediate operation because of how bad it was. So it was a fracture within my right orbital,
Mm.
plate, whatever the bone. I'm not sure the exact terminology,
So
but
now you're setting metal detectors off left and right, right?
yeah, unfortunately,
Go through
yeah,
airplanes.
yeah. So
Jeez.
I can actually feel
Do you
it.
carry like a proof that I have a plate in
I
my?
should, I should. Yeah, I know. They
Sure, buddy.
line up against the wall. It's time for a frisking, but
Yeah, right,
I'll
right.
take a cold brew instead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So was
So
that when you mentioned you prayed even though
yeah, even so, that was a time of prayer for
yeah.
me where I was like, wow, like I put myself into this mess, and
Mm,
that's when my life changed. That's when I did a complete turnaround. 17, I was still hanging around the same friends,
yeah.
but I knew it wasn't a good fit for me,
Yeah.
and I was barely making it to school, barely graduated. I got a diploma, thank God, but
Yeah.
I was barely just holding on.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was tough.
Yeah. What you get the Bible, you start reading the Gospels. What else did God do? Like how did that turnaround start taking place?
Yeah, so it was it it it's a good question. Uh,
Did you start going back to church at all or was that later?
I did not go back to church,
Hmm.
no, but I hung out more with the my friend who handed me the Bible a lot
Okay.
more. I met his parents for the first time probably like a month later.
Okay.
Then they were praying upon dinners, so I would be there like for dinner, and I was like, all right, this is a
Different?
good deed. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
a good deed for me. But that's
Hmm.
how what is the question again? Actually,
Like what other like you said it kind of God brought a turnaround, but so what do you think turned around like at first? Behaviors, how you thought about things.
yeah. So it helped me to focus more on me, to focus more of who I hung out with, and it changed my life of what was important and what was not important, what was right from wrong, knowing that I was doing everything wrong. That was just based on unknowingly
Yeah.
information. It was just
Yeah.
unknowing
But now you
information.
know.
Yes, and now I
So
know, right?
so that was making you feel guilty, shame, what was it making you feel?
It made me felt both guilty and shamed
Mm,
of what I was doing
yeah.
and how bad I didn't live a bad life, but how I
Yeah.
wasn't living a good life at the
Yeah.
time.
And it's yeah, it's interesting because you're right. It's like more like you were really just hurting yourself. I mean, I guess when you were selling stuff to people, that's not good, and
Hmm.
you're kind of influencing others towards bad choices, and that's not good. But it's not like you treated people very horribly and that kind of thing.
Correct.
But if you had continued down that road, whether on purpose or not, you would have.
Hmm.
Maybe you would have still had kids, and what kind of a father would you have been? And where would that have headed, right? Like
Hmm.
if God didn't turn you around when you did,
No, it's true.
you know,
No,
because you were still
it's true.
relatively young. You're later teen years. You haven't made big life decisions yet,
Hmm.
and you're not like ruining other people's lives. But that's what you would have done. Continue to ruin yours, ruin anyone who cared about you,
Hmm.
and that's what happens.
No, it's true. And like being curious is one thing,
Yeah,
and not knowing from right from wrong is another thing.
yeah,
And I was curious with the wrong things,
yeah,
and
yeah.
at such a young age, it was just that was my access point,
Mm,
and I it's not like my parents were never there for me.
right.
They did an amazing job raising me,
Mm,
I want to say, and
yeah.
I'm blessed to have food and
Took care of
clothes
you,
and
and
had
yeah.
a house. However, they were not involved with um, how I was growing up,
Hmm.
what was around me, what was my surroundings. They had to work. My mom worked at night. My dad worked during the day. So
Yeah.
in between those hours, they did
Mm,
not have any idea of what I was doing, and unfortunately, it was not all the good things. Yeah.
no. Anyone else? Did anyone in your family pick up on it though? Any of your uncles and aunts go, something's not right
I
here.
think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I believe so.
yeah.
Nobody ever confronted me.
No,
Nobody.
they
Yeah.
just kind of.
Yeah, they kind of just dismissed it, brushed out of the rug, and it
Mm,
was just so common in
yeah,
our family. If it wasn't my dad doing it, I'm sure it was his
yeah,
brother,
yeah.
or we have a big set of family. I
Mm,
know one out of this, four of them are doing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I also wonder if, like you said, your personality was such to be not be disrespectful and be that
Hmm.
jerky kid. So it's like sometimes just like, I mean, whatever. He's a nice kid. He's not hurting anybody. I'm
Yeah.
not going to get involved. I wonder if that played a role. If you had, gotten in fights and beat people up, obviously you got hit, but that wasn't really you.
Right.
I wonder if they would have stepped in and said, well, you're going down the wrong road, you
Well,
know?
it's like if you walk into Jordan's Furniture, for example, and you go into a salesman, I don't think that salesman's gonna go to you with that attitude.
Right.
And I think I developed that at a very young age, where it was like I need to pick up on a salesman attitude
Oh,
and be
wow.
very social. That's gonna be the way to make the money, and
Yeah. Huh.
and I that's
Yeah, you didn't even realize you
yeah
were doing it, but you were.
yeah
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah. If
exactly.
I'm the big, if I'm the guy everyone's intimidated of or doesn't really want to be around, I'm not going to get any
Yeah,
sales.
I knew that at a
You
very
know?
young age, and
Mm,
unfortunately, I distributed for others as well, and that was like what I had to learn. That was a
yeah.
skill set that I had to learn, and it was just because like friends of friends, they would have a massive amount, and
Mm-hmm.
then I would be used to distribute it because I had a big social status, I guess I want to
Okay.
call it,
Yeah.
and um, I was able to do that. But am I proud of it? No. But
No, no.
but
It's interesting to hear you talk about it though, because you just like you were so well liked and popular for probably all the wrong reasons.
correct.
But
Yeah,
you had the personality that people liked, but you were also, wow, look at he gets drunk, gets high, sells, does all these cool things,
correct.
and this is the life you're living, and then you get to that point in your basement where you feel completely alone. It's
Yeah,
all empty.
it's all empty. Yeah. And
Yeah.
even still to this day, where to reflect on that, I have everything that I have, but still it's empty unless I fill it with the word, with
Yeah.
God. And
Yeah.
you know, I can dress very nicely. I can have these nice clothes. I have a beautiful house on the hills, right? I
Mm-hmm.
have beautiful wife, my
Mm-hmm.
family, God bless my kids, but without God, it's
Hmm.
and in me, not just God, but God also in me, it doesn't mean anything. And that's
You learn that at
I
the
learned that. I learned that. Um,
yeah. Yeah, when we talk to our teenagers, it's just like sometimes, now a lot of them understand, don't get me wrong, but just some of them, especially the boys, they just, they think, it's like it's like they have to experience it themselves. Not necessarily your story or that necessarily bad, although in some cases, yes,
mm,
but just like, you just want to like grab him and be like, listen, just listen to what Michael says. Cause
yeah,
like he was way higher up on the cool chain than you're ever going to be because of all that he was doing. And he was completely empty.
it's true. I've seen, you know, I don't know about millions of dollars. I've seen a lot of cash flow,
Yeah.
and it's not good cash flow. And
Right.
I was
And
able to have that, but that's
mm,
nothing. None of that meant anything. Now that I reflect,
mm,
it's wasn't good either. It was nothing good about it.
praise God that you can take that very tangible
Mm,
lesson into your life now,
yeah,
into like, I can have stuff and God be praised and to the blessings of life that he'll give us. But if I don't have him, it's
it's
completely
true.
empty.
And I'm gonna pause on that because I want to
Yeah.
show you something.
Uh-oh. He's not leaving.
I have here. This is one for you,
Nice.
and this is one for Steve.
All right.
All
Who's
right.
Steve, the guy behind the.
Yeah. So, what does it look like, right?
Yep.
It's an olive wood cross. You know, it's made from Bethlehem.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
so it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But there's also a green rope. Thank
Mhm.
you, Lawrence, my wife. She helped me glue this on to the cross here.
Mhm.
And the green rope, which I saw on a couple Sundays, which I hope it comes back.
It will. Oh
Uh,
yeah. The green tape on the rope. Yeah.
yeah, the green tape on the rope. It resembles the life that we live, right? Or actually, maybe you could say it best.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
the life that we do live is only a small amount. But
Mhm.
without God in your life,
Useless.
it's useless.
Yeah.
So
Thanks,
that's
man.
actually for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the first gift from anyone on the podcast. So,
Oh,
I
thank you.
think it just sets a precedent for anyone else who comes on.
Oh yeah, and compliment your shirt too. I like your
That's
shirt,
right, man.
Yeah. You
Nobody
know,
ever
it's a
does
good
that.
shirt. So
So thank you so much. And
you're
I'm
welcome.
sure, yeah, thank you. And it really does represent what God taught you. So take us back to when God was doing, you graduated, you barely got that diploma.
Yeah.
You're reading your Bible.
Yep.
What happened next? Like, what did God do?
So immediate, my mind shifted from stepping away from the friends that I had,
Mm-hmm.
focus on setting a career, um, finishing school,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of this played a part with Lauren too. She was a couple years younger than me, but she was like, "Hey, listen, you know, my family came from nothing. We're immigrants. We
Yeah.
have worked our way to the top. You
Mm-hmm.
need to do the same too. You implement with what you have, use your
like,
skills."
I ain't taking no lazy
Yeah,
husband.
yeah, exactly. She's like, you know, I cannot show you to my family. This is not the man that I want or need. So she actually left me. I was like, all right, this is a great time to reflect. I left myself. I stayed in a friend's house. You know, I wasn't staying at my house at
Okay.
all. I was gone for months. My parents did not search for me, but they also um, just let me go. And
Yeah.
I
Well, how old were you at this point? 1920?
1920, yeah, 1920. I
Yeah.
was figuring out life.
Yeah.
What career am I gonna do? What am I gonna do in my life? I didn't go to college right after. Barely made it through high
Right.
school.
Exactly.
You know, I was then my GPA then is way below failing.
Mm.
So I was people smart. I was
Yep.
street smart, I guess you can call it, but I was not book smart. And that was when I hit the books. I just self-taught everything. Um, I, you know, I listened to a lot of podcasts. If your podcast was around that then, it would have been very helpful. I did a lot of
Yeah.
self-help YouTube,
Yeah.
and it just skyrocketed my career. And I was a friend of mine who I did go to school with, he invited me to go to school. I said, all right, sure. This is the dental school. I'm like, all right. He's like, don't worry about what you've done. Just let's go now. And he happened to be not doing good for himself, which I did not know. He was a cocaine user,
Oh, wow.
drinker, smoker. I knew of him. I didn't know his personal at that
Struggles that
time.
he was
Yeah,
having,
so I started school with him, and he was like, "Hey, let's go to the bathroom." All right, let's go to the bathroom. He takes out like a big bag of cocaine, and he's like, "You want some?" I'm like, "No."
At this point, were you clean? Or
I
were
was
you,
clean.
You were
Yeah,
done.
I was clean, but that was another invite to get back
Yeah. It's
to
like
the.
you can just see Satan, not
And I was
him,
just like,
but the
oh.
enemy just going, nah, we're reeling you back in.
I felt a sick to my stomach. It
Oh.
was just like, wow, like
You
you.
just run? What'd you do?
Well,
you see like Joseph and Potiphar's wife, like, I'm out of here.
The sad part about it was he was the one that invited me to the school.
I
And
know,
I was
I
like,
know.
wow, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but if it wasn't for him, for that invitation, I wouldn't have been going to the dental school. So,
Right.
but hey, he passed, I passed, we all passed, and it
He
was
didn't
a
need
good
to
deed.
sleep since he's all coked out of his
Yeah,
mind.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I was
So
like,
what during that time? Where was your faith? Was it kind of there but not? What?
I knew and believed in God,
Yeah.
but I had no faith. I just was thinking, I need to make.
You got to figure it
Yeah,
out.
I made
Yeah.
myself like let's call it like a millionaire in my head. In my head, I made
Mm-hmm.
myself uh very wealthy of knowledge, but not with the word.
Mm.
I then was like, all right, I need to figure out my um career.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I did not have any faith at all. I
Mm.
just had a belief that I knew I was going to do it
Yeah.
without saying, "Hey, God is going to help me through
Yeah.
this."
It was more
Uh,
belief in yourself.
Belief in myself,
Yeah. Which
and
is, scary.
right, yeah, very scary, very, very, very
When you're
scary.
young, you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And it like takes a few experiences to realize, no, I'm not. Or if I
That's
do, it's still
true.
going to be empty.
Yeah,
Yeah. So when did that faith spark for you?
I want to say when I was like 21.
Okay.
Yeah, that I was. Yeah, 21 when I was getting ready to marry Lawrence, where I had to go
Did
back.
she have faith
Yeah,
or?
she had faith. She was
Okay.
fully,
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
invested since
Yeah.
day one of
Yeah.
me knowing her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes back into high school. So,
Right.
um, however, we had to take communion classes through a Catholic church. So that
Mm-hmm.
was when I was to get married through the
To get
church.
married. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and that was the only church we knew because we grew up
Right.
in Framingham, and
Yeah.
that was the only church we only went to. So I was like, all right, yeah,
That's your family history.
that's my family
Yeah.
history. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we had to do communion through the
Yeah.
church, and I was then fully
Your
invested.
friend's dad, he wasn't
Yeah,
Catholic. Obviously, he was
Christian.
married. So he was a Protestant pastor. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very nice guy.
Yeah.
He's still doing it to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
God bless him. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to church, and then what did God do then?
Help me understand that my life that I was living, I took it to take it as a lesson
Hmm.
that that's something that I wasn't gonna live with forever. I was gonna that Jesus was gonna come to me as I come to him and forgive me for everything because
Yeah.
it was like unknown information. How do I say it? Like um, the word I'm trying to think of is I can't think of the name. The word it's information that's just uh, I can't think of it.
Hmm.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's all right.
Word I'm trying to think of.
Wish I could help, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
grasping
It's
for.
learned helplessness. It was just
Oh.
learned helplessness
Right.
media that was fed to me at such a young age,
Mm.
and I had no stopping or nobody guiding me to
Mm-hmm.
say, "Hey, nobody shook me like how you
Yeah.
wanted to shake some of the kids."
Yeah.
Uh,
No one did that.
Nobody did that for
For you.
me,
Yeah.
and that my past is something that I'm gonna live with forever, but it was gonna be forgiven
Mm.
because, and that's something that I can help my kids
Mm-hmm.
through life. Like they don't need to know about my past,
Mm-hmm.
but if I'm aware and I can teach them to be aware, that was the one lesson that I learned that I took from
Mm-hmm.
going to church, speaking to a pastor then,
Mm-hmm.
and it helped me.
How do you think your past specifically has changed how you parent and even your own marriage as well?
Yeah, well, I make sure to come to church every week.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that I know my dad didn't do,
Yeah.
and that's something that I want to
Mm-hmm.
implement on my kids,
Yeah.
and also be kind.
Yeah.
Always be kind. I learned that at a very young age. So uh, be friends, be very social,
Mm-hmm.
but to be cautious on who you're social with. Like,
Okay, so who you're spending your time with
yeah.
is very important.
very important.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look at your kids now, obviously they're still young, but as they get older, I'm sure that's something that you're going to be watching. Like,
Oh,
who
yeah.
are they hanging with?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna be there like a hawk. I'm gonna be hanging out with them.
You're like, Dad, we're going over someone's basement. You're like, no, you're not. Well, I see it.
No, I don't want to be too strict, but like
No.
I want to set
They need boundaries. Yeah.
some boundaries and also awareness.
Yeah.
The idea to be aware of what's right from wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And life is so much better when you know the Lord, right?
And that's
Regardless of what you have or don't have.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. You can be when you're faithful with a little, you'll be faithful with a lot.
Mm,
And that's my way of thinking now.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's I don't know that you could attribute it much but to just simply God's grace that he turned you around when he did. You don't see that a lot without some real dramatic, and yeah, you had the surgery, which is pretty dramatic, but a real dramatic rock bottom. It's like there was a combination of things. There was an empty feeling. There was, Laurent and like, well, I'm gonna have to get myself together if I'm gonna be with her. And then there's the fight and the surgery when you were 16. It's like this culmination of things that God used you to seek out what was right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it,
Doesn't happen to a lot of people. I mean, you've seen some of the friends you hung out with. They just keep on going down
yeah,
that
a
road.
lot of them have passed away. A
Yeah.
lot of them are in jail. A lot of them are still doing the same things they've been doing for 15 plus years.
It's incredible. It's like we say that, but it's like when you see it so up close and personal in your life,
Mhm.
how God just grabbed you, even though you didn't
Yeah.
know that's what he was doing. You look
Yeah.
back, you're like, there's no really good reason why I am in this trajectory except for his
No, it's
grace.
true. And I could have been one of them.
Yeah.
I could have been in jail, dead. Um,
Yeah, probably would be.
I could have
We're still
been
doing the stupid
legless
stuff.
from,
Yeah.
any, it
Probably
could have been anything,
divorced.
divorce
Who
or
knows?
never been married, never
Right.
had kids.
Right. But have
It's
kids
true.
that weren't from your
Yeah.
wife and just all this stuff
No, it's true.
that, you know. So what would you say to let me ask it a few of these, but first, that teenager who thinks like, nah, I can, whether it's drugs or drinking or it's just I got this, I don't need God. Like what would
Hmm.
like if I was
What
that
would I
if I was
say?
that 16-year-old,
Right.
uh what would you say to him or her, but especially him because we can understand that
Well,
better.
I would tell him that, your your brain is your best friend. Your
Mm-hmm.
heart is what's going to keep you pumping, and you need to have God, you need to have God in both of them.
Mm,
And if you don't have your head on your shoulders, God will help you.
mm,
And stay in school. Keep a close eye on who you're hanging out with. Don't fall. Don't go with the crowd.
mm.
Sometimes it's best to go against the crowd.
Yeah.
The airplane takes off
Mm,
against the wind, right?
mm,
So just
yeah.
be the airplane. Don't go with the wind.
Mm.
Yeah.
What about if it was a parent watching this who has maybe a kid who just seems to be a little bit headed down and they just notice it? Like, and obviously you haven't been there where your kids are old enough to do that, but what do you think could have been helpful to you that you didn't have?
Talking about it, being
Mm,
being trying to be, of course, be present, be in their shoes, and ask them questions
yeah.
on who, what, when, where, why, and how, and
Mm,
just what can we do to help. Do you want help? And
mm.
if so, let's get you help. And if they don't want help, well, I'd say let's get them help anyways. Yeah,
Yeah.
they kind of have
It's
no
better if
choice.
they
Uh,
if they're with you on it,
yeah,
but
just to be
uh,
communicative, open, upfront. Don't scold them for their
mm,
behavior. Let's figure out why. Let's backtrack. What
mm,
did the parent do wrong, if they did anything wrong? Analyze, to
yeah.
be analytical, and yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Does your past and just the trajectory and the path that you've taken or God's taken you down, do you think does it give you a unique perspective on people who have done some wrong things, some stuff that are like, ugh, that some people might like shy away from or almost judge? Do you have a unique perspective because you've been through some of that?
Oh yeah, I do. I feel like to somebody who thinks well, actually, I don't know how to answer that question.
yeah, like when you see someone who's had a rough past,
Yeah.
like how does your past impact how you think or treat that person?
I would treat them just just as the same as I would treat you, with
Yeah,
respect.
yeah.
Um, everyone is human,
Mm,
but just talk to them very normal. Yeah. Yeah,
gives you a
like,
humility.
yeah,
Because it's like, like Jesus said, get the log out of your own eye before you get the speck out of your brother's eye.
right,
And
right.
you're well aware of the log that was once in or can still sometimes
That's
find its
great.
way back in.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to um it's easy to judge
Mm,
someone, but it's harder to accept them. And
right.
that's what I learned.
Mm,
Like, it's harder to say, all right, you could do this in your life, however, I can't judge you on that.
mm.
Yeah.
It's also a reminder, at least to me, when I think about your story, it's like, it's a reminder. It's not like something I don't know or don't preach, but it's really a tangible reminder that we shouldn't look at people as like lost causes or not them. They're just not going to get there,
Yeah.
whether they're a teenager or young adult or not. Because as we said, God, there's really no, yeah, you made some efforts for sure, right? And we have to, right? We're not just passive
Mm.
jellyfish, but there's really no explanation for where you are versus some of the former friends
Mm.
who are dead or in prison except for God. And so why would somebody that we have in our life or who might come into our life that are like, "Oh, look what they do or look what they've done." Why would they be beyond God's grace? Like what would make us say we do, because it's human sometimes
Yes.
to think it's easier to see like a nice person who's doing well to come to know God, but it's
No,
like it's
it's
not how God
no,
operates.
it's true. What the best is was in the beginning, where,
Mm,
God worked his way through the 7 days,
yeah.
worked very hard, and as he made man and woman, it was from dust,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Just picked it up, formed it, blew a breath of life in it,
Mm.
and that's the way we will go as well. So
Yeah.
to judge somebody, we're
Made in
all
his image.
right, to be
Yeah.
made in his image,
Mm.
or you have to accept,
Yeah.
is the key thing, that we will all come with him and also go with him,
Yeah.
with as he's in our heart.
Do you find, like, when I think of this gift and the green tape, do you find, is it less of a temptation to you than maybe others or would have been? Or is it still, man, it still creeps in like I gotta get that green tape or
It
the green.
always creeps in. It's
Yeah,
always knocking on my back door, and I know now from right from wrong. I
you do.
I I absolutely, it disgusts me from knowing this much information,
Uh,
and it weighs so heavy in my heart that um I cannot run away from
what weighs heavy? What do you mean when you say that? Like, what's like
that.
that temptation to?
Oh no, no temptations,
Hmm.
but knowing that I went through all of that. So I don't have like
Oh,
temptations that I want to drink. I don't have
yeah, yeah, yeah.
temptations that I want to smoke.
But it's more
Um,
like like you said, the getting all the stuff, even as a Christian, like
yeah,
the right, the big house, the kids, the
yeah,
wife, the job, the stuff. Like none of that's wrong, right? Of course, it's not wrong. But like we talk about, it will be empty if that's what you put your stock into.
that's correct. Yeah, so
Better
like,
to be in a little apartment with nothing with Jesus than all that stuff without him.
amen on that.
Yeah.
I,
But we lose focus
uh,
on that so easily.
it's all materials, and
Yeah.
as it was made, it can be destroyed.
Mm,
And with the power of God and the word and knowing and continuing to go to church
mm,
and to be a part of and living and breathing the Bible
mm.
and God and going to church, being close with your pastor, it's
Yeah.
just all ties into
Yeah.
uh, life after
The
death.
eternity. Yeah.
Yeah. So the material things, they rust, rot, depreciate.
Mm,
The house, the cars, everything.
Even if
money.
it doesn't, you're either someone someday is gonna sell it or give it away or
That's right.
throw it in a garage
Yeah. You know,
somewhere.
there's a saying: the parents make the money, the kids
And
they spend the money or they lose the money. You know,
or
they
like we were talking about before the episode, Mickey Mouse spends it.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's such a important lesson as a dad with children. Mine are older than yours, but it's like we can easily kind of understand in our own head like stuff is just stuff, but then it's hard not to want our kids to have everything and realize we
yeah,
got to constantly remember that might not be what's good for them,
hmm
right? Like, yeah, we want them to be happy and experience stuff, and that's not wrong, but like it can easily go into them that becomes the identity. Like, how many experiences do we give our kids, and how much do they have? And it's like, are we teaching them that that's what life's about? And it's not.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It reminds
It's
me of.
tough because you love them. You don't want them to just be sitting around with nothing.
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, it's like a reflect of an hour ago going through Shaw's with my daughter. Her wanting
I want
everything. I
this. I
want
want
candy. I want this and that. I'm like, all right, so let's pump the brakes here.
that. Yeah.
Unfortunately, none of it came home with us,
Oh, there
but
you go.
it was a good lesson for her to.
Good technique with that is you keep a second cart.
Yeah,
And just throw it in, and then just
and
leave
you
it.
leave
That's
it.
the poor,
There you go.
the poor people that work at the shopping
Oh
center have
my
to put it all
goodness.
back though. leave a little envelope of cash.
Oh.
Like tip them. Hey, sorry about this.
Yeah, yeah,
It got us through the grocery store without any temper
yeah.
tantrums.
My pastor told me this was the right thing to do. Oh my
Yeah, tip
goodness.
well.
Yeah.
Well, also when you talk about how God gave you the personality that He's given you,
Yeah.
now think about what He will do with that with the Lord
Yeah.
instead of, convincing them to buy weed or whatever. You're actually able to engage with people to show them the right path.
Right.
And because God's given you the right demeanor and personality, that people will listen and actually be impacted by you.
Yeah. And that's something that's in my trajectory
Yeah.
where I want to incorporate
Mhm.
now moving forward. How can I be involved?
Yeah.
Church, community,
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
teens, and actually I going to be involved more. And I have this upcoming event. It's in a couple weeks, actually, with the folk that he comes here and he's hosting the event, and hopefully that may be my opening too to see if I
Yeah.
can help out with
Yeah.
some youth.
You better
I
watch
guess.
out because
Yeah.
Pastor Josh finds out, watches this. He's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
have you roped in.
Yeah, well, that too. I'm
That's good though.
how do I say it? I'm just a free agent at the moment,
Yeah, wow,
but the
watch
stakes
out.
are high.
Yeah, all
The
right.
stakes are high.
But I would just say for anyone who watches this to feel fine about going up to you and just like, because you could be a real help to people now that they know some of your story.
Yes.
And now you're not just this put together guy with the cute kids and the wife, you are that, but you have a real history that could have went real bad and
Oh
did
yes.
for a bit.
And I think about it every night.
Yeah.
And I know that it's my story can be impactful and it can help a lot of
Yeah.
children or just youth,
Children,
and
teens, everything.
the generation now.
Mm,
It's quite challenging for their future because of
mm.
what's available to them now as far as media and now the phones and the social media and there's a lot of things that are promoted that shouldn't be. And
Everything's right there.
yeah,
Everything's right there. The pornography's obviously a number one killer, but we're seeing, the gambling now for especially boys and young men. Now it's legal. You can just go on your phone and bet
sports
on
betting.
games and
Yes.
bet on it's every commercial.
Mm.
It's like, Viagra and and gambling.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Like if you watch a game, I don't watch a lot of commercials anymore, but usually live sports is about the time where I see it, and that's all. It's all it is bet this, bet that. So
That's true.
it's just, and then the connectivity, the anxiety. It's like every single teenager, young adult it feels like, it's not everyone, but it feels this way, are on or should be on something for their anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, this world is just destroying these kids. So the more God will use people like you to just be there, you know, and not gonna, we can't be God, and people are still gonna be people, but
No,
we
it's
can
true.
make an impact and a difference.
And that's what I want to do. I want to make an impact and be a voice to those who want to hear, who need the help.
Yeah.
And that's something that I do want to be. It's a calling for me,
It
and
is.
I feel it within me, and being more active here as well with
Yeah.
Cornerstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I want to advocate on. Yes.
Well, you started by doing this because it gives, just your story alone is I don't know, you're like, I don't know if it's the whole idea of this podcast is not just the big dramatic, you know, it's struggles that God has taken us from and used and will continue to use. And it gives people hope, like, oh, okay, like I'm not beyond God's grace.
Right.
I've screwed up. But so did Michael, and Jamie did too.
Yeah.
Does. And yet God is so faithful, and it's so great. Your story helps people see that.
And I'm thankful for that because I have a story that can help and change lives, and without your podcast here, it won't be voiced out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you said you're a free agent, so watch out now.
Hey, the stakes are high
You
here.
better get an agent.
Yeah, I'll leave the cards at the table. That's funny.
Oh, hey man, thanks so much for coming on, and
Awesome.
Just can't wait to see what God will do.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll have you back on to get see what happened.
Thank you, Pastor Jamie. I
All right,
appreciate
brother.
it.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for having me.
And cut.
And
Good job,
cut.
man. Good job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.